Welcome to Viva La Visionary, the podcast that celebrates the innovative ideas and mindsets of entrepreneurs and visionaries. Join your host, Coach Bob Schittefeld, as he dives into inspiring stories and practical insights from trailblazers who are changing the game. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned leader, this show is your source for motivation and creativity. Let's embark on this exciting journey together.
Hey there, Coach Bob. Excited for the Visionary Forums podcast. It's called Viva La Visionary, and I've got Rufus Cressend here. Rufus, how are you today?
Bob, if I was any better, I'd be you.
Well, good luck with that. No, I appreciate that. So thanks for taking the time today. The purpose of the Visionary Forums podcast is to celebrate and elevate visionaries. And we've known each other for a while, and I respect the heck out of you and the visionary that you are and the value you add to other visionaries. So I'm excited to have a fun dialogue. So let's jump in. I'll ask a few questions. So what is your role as a visionary? How do you view what is kind of your job as a visionary?
My job as a visionary is to, it's interchangeable, different, with different circles. I mean, one could argue it's the CEO's role, and some people consider it more the driven and visionary driven entrepreneur, all very interchangeable. But visionary, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, there's also, there's the different operating systems that have their definitions. But I think that it's just my ability to be on the business strategically, work in the business strategically, being less tactical, thinking about the bigger picture, kind of taking the temperature of the environment in the marketplace and how our company serves the community, and to make those changes and go into unknown territory. And I think that's one of the values of a visionary, is to be able to understand the risk. I mean, we can't live a life without risk, but we can certainly be smart about that risk, try to mitigate that risk, and like I said, do things that other people are not necessarily willing to do. And I think that ultimately can mark the success of a visionary within their company.
Right. Awesome. Appreciate that. And your business, Waterfront Wealth Management, I'm not going to try to explain it. I know you help people make more money with their money, but so how would you describe it in a couple sentences for a simple person like me? What do you do for your clients?
In simplest terms, I like to explain it that every financial planner is a financial advisor, but not every financial advisor is a financial planner. And it's important to understand the difference. We're financial planners first, and that means that clients don't necessarily have to bring money to us for us to work with them, because we don't necessarily have to sell investment product. Now, don't get me wrong, assets under management and managing those assets, of course, is a very important part of what we do. However, we work a lot with business owners that have a lot of their money tied up in their companies, people who have real estate investments, or even some clients that need financial plan, but all their money's tied up in their company retirement plan. They can't necessarily bring us investments for us to sell them investments.
Right.
So we do financial planning, and financial planning is more on a fee-based, basically figuring out where you are and where you want to be, and it'll help you make smart financial decisions to get there. But most importantly, with that, we help you change the behaviors to stop doing what you're currently doing and start doing new things that get you closer to your goals.
I'm gonna have to change.
Well, it's I love to say,
No,
change your goals, change your goals or change your activities. I'm okay with either. It's just to be that truth teller to people that sometimes they just are rationalizing a certain behavior for years, and they finally start to see what is reality, and that's what we have to point out to them. And then, and only then, can they really start making progress towards what they really want in life.
So I don't know that world very well, and I want to learn more. And
that's why I exist, because people like you don't know the world. So there you go.
I'm not competition for you, that's for sure. But I've heard you talk about, it's not just about, again, you need to invest here and there. It is, what are your goals? And I love how you've talked about, so what I need to know myself and what are my goals? And it's not just money goals, correct? I mean, It's obviously money is going to help fund some of those things. But typically I would think, okay, I just want to get an X percentage higher return. But what I've heard you talk about is, okay, so sit back and analyze your life a little bit and figure out what are your real goals in general, and then how do we fund it? Would that be appropriate? Because I've heard you speak like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about just making investments. It's saying I want to educate my children. I want to be able to be financially independent, have the option to retire one day and not run out of money. I want to have the financial freedoms to go out there and pursue something that I'm really passionate about. This job is just funding that dream for the future. And so in some people, it's just a matter of be able to pay my taxes. I want to get out of debt. So there's a lot of things that, again, people want for themselves, and sometimes there's just certain roadblocks that need to be cleaned up. And yeah, having a higher rate of return doesn't mean a whole lot, Bob. If someone hasn't planned properly, all it means is that if they didn't get the higher return, they run out of money at 76 versus 75. Right.
So it sounds like you're getting to the why and helping people to figure out why do they want or need more money. And then you're the one that can help with the what and the how. Would that make sense? Or
yes, and that's the thing, is a lot of times the why, and I think this goes even for business in general with visionaries, is that we can limit ourselves on what we want. I had a meeting even the other day, and it's the simplest question sometimes is that saying, when would you like to be financially independent? When would you like to retire? People, all of a sudden, you see them kind of going to what they know. Okay, well, people in my community seem to tend to retire at 65. So I guess that's what I want. No, you want what you've seen other people get because you know how they got it. It's like, but what do you want? And so we tend to settle for the lesser goal because the lesser goal is easier and we understand it, versus saying, well, if I really was honest with myself, what I really like to do is retire at 55 and go pursue this passion, whether I made money or not. Okay, well, maybe it's not a reality, but it's still something that you want. Now we can start having meaningful discussions towards that.
Right. Well, I love it because there's a lot of people, humans, and again, I coach visionaries too. But if someone doesn't know the why, then who cares about the what and the how?
Right. Yeah, they'll deny themselves the why, because they just don't understand how.
Right. No, I appreciate that. So just a simple little question. What is your why in life? Like, why are you on this planet? So just a little easy one.
All right.
Softball for you.
I think it's to kind of give that hope and clarity to people that to become more than they're capable of being. I think I see the potential of what people, and it kind of goes back to the self-limiting beliefs that we've just talked about, but helping be that ambassador of wisdom, to be a person. I think that when I reflect on it, look at various stages of my life. If I can be that for someone else, if I can serve someone at that level and help them accelerate their lives to the way I needed that person when I was at their stage, I think that is, there's no higher calling than to serve. And I think that I can accomplish, and I borrow this is years ago, from Zig Ziglar. It was, you can, and I'll probably mess up the quote, but it was, you can have everything you want in life if you can just help enough people get what they want in life.
Right. Love it.
Isn't that cool?
And you've helped me with that, even recommending to reread The Go-Giver. And we've talked about that in our group of visionaries, where I've seen you explain it, that it's not just about coming to a group like this and getting, which obviously is great, but it's serving and giving back. And I've literally seen people give you a double take and go, oh, wow. So not only is that, and it's not an obligation, it's a desire, it's a fulfilling activity in being. So I appreciate that. So I think that ties into your why. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the how, the way we do it is, I think there's a certain level of empathy that has to be achieved. And from a professional standpoint, when someone says, what would be your secret to success, it would just basically to say our ability to become empathetic and to have people be seen and heard by us, to be able to hold the space for them to basically say, I get where you're come from. I understand, your scripts of how you grew up, your history of money, your relationship with money, and to basically be empathetic to where ultimately you get to the point where you say, Bob, if I were you, this is what I would do. And they know that I'm coming from a position of empathy versus a position of me trying to sell them something. Right. So anyway.
So that's an interesting, you bring up selling. I feel there's, I've been studying and working with visionaries for 30 years, and a lot of us are salespeople. A lot of us have started our business by seeing an issue or an opportunity, creating a solution, but then often a lot of us get caught into delivering on that solution, and that kind of sucks. And then that's where we put in business operating systems and whatnot. But often it comes back to, okay, either I'm being told I need to sell or I feel I have to sell. And speaking with a couple other visionaries recently, they were saying we almost have to unlearn what we were taught. And I was taught to go sell. And even if you didn't need it, it was kind of like a trained assassin. So I appreciate you're saying that you're not selling, you're being empathetic and compassionate, and then sharing your experience as a trusted advisor. I think that's awesome.
I think when it comes to sales, there's a mastery that can be achieved. Master level salespeople are the ones that can frame the conversations, shut up long enough to listen and to what the actual problem is before they bring their solution. I think too many people will rush in and want to solve someone's problem without truly understanding what the problem is. It's like I say, it's like, don't ever ask a barber if you need a haircut, right? So it's the idea that if you can get to that mastery level of, and think of it this way, people love to buy, they hate to be sold, to where you can basically ask enough questions to where they own the idea that they understand what their problem is, which is through your masterful art of asking questions that you've been able to draw it out of them, asking stuff that they never thought about. They understand the problem. You understand the problem, and then and only then do you say, here's a possible solution. Do you want it? And that's where they're like, absolutely, this makes total sense. This solves the problem that I now understand. And like I said, just too often people are just rushing in, beating them over the head with their product, saying, you need this, you need this. They have to create a need. Well, so anyway.
Well, and that's if we have quotas or payroll to meet. I think there's that added pressure. So I'm glad I'm
There's
letting
nothing
go.
wrong with grit, and there's nothing wrong with hustle. But again, selling someone is not necessarily the approach.
Right. And even, what we've learned together with the Visionary Forum, it's visionaries unleashing visionaries. And it's not just that I'm coming to you for financial advice. It's about, again, asking each other questions, listening, and experience share might be, have you read this book or have you met that person? So I love that. And I love that mentality and that commitment. That's awesome. So you have a book coming up, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I have. It was one book, then turned into two books because
You're a visionary.
Well, we talk about visionaries being scattered, and I think there's the flip side of that coin that says that the visionary has an uncanny ability to be hyper focused, and I found myself in that zone, in that flow of writing, because it was writing what I knew, something I've been doing for 28 years. So stuff that I've known and things that I haven't thought about in years, and the flow just starts going. And next thing I know, I'm at like 400 pages. I'm like, there's no way somebody's going to read a book about financial stuff. I wouldn't want to read a book on financial stuff, and I'm in the industry. So I ultimately looked at it, outlined it, says, okay, what have I written? And it really kind of developed into two separate books, one being more practical and procedural with the financial planning process and how to kind of almost as a guide, if you will. And the other one's going to be much more on behavioral. And it's kind of a know thyself, understand why do you make the decisions that you make and how that may be affecting you and being the main roadblock. And the idea behind that is that you can know everything there is to know about stocks and bonds and investing and but if you don't know how to understand your own behaviors and your own saboteurs, your own biases, then you're constantly swimming against the tide there. So I think that's the book that needed to be written. That's going to come out a little bit later. That's going to be a little bit harder because I don't have a background in psychology. All I can draw upon is all my experiences and understand. People have been doing this for years. I've been observing these things, and here's the wisdom share that I'm trying to give. So yes.
And you are great at observing and organizing those thoughts and then shifting it back with what I know we've talked about with Rufusisms. So what is a Rufusism?
Rufus, well, I don't know. Rufusism is
I
just
love them. I love
that's things that I've probably stolen along the way. I'm sure that it's probably other people's quotes that I've just adopted and forgot where the origin was, and I just took it as my own, probably. But some things, just things that stick. I don't have a good memory of long-term quotes, but I can remember short things. So I guess that's why I tend to use them a lot. But for example, I've seen progress can't be made until reality is defined. That's a pretty compelling statement that says, okay, well, we're trying to go on this journey, but we don't know where we are. Okay, so little things like that I'll throw in there. But yeah, that's kind of where Rufusisms came in. Is that it's yeah, like I said, just things I've picked up over the years that it's kind of rinse and repeat. A big part of my job is just, I've seen it so many times. It rhymes. They're never identical, but they all rhyme. So the same discipline, the same Rufusism kind of works its way into those conversations.
Right. No, and again, I commend you for it, because that's how, like, I learn from people. And again, I'm not always great at remembering it line for word for word. And if you seem very good, and you give credit where credit is due, if you remember, by the way, which I appreciate. So is that a third book as Rufusisms, or are those embedded in your first two?
They're going to be peppered throughout. Yeah. So remember,
you summarize them at the end or something, but
they'll be in there. And I'm giving there's a lot of quotes in there, because I really do appreciate the simplicity that certain sayings have. I mean, Warren Buffett's known for many of them. Napoleon Hill's known for so many of them. I mean, there's so many great authors out there. I mean, even Mark Twain. I love saying, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter, right? So little things like, and you heard me even give a Rufusism earlier, saying that people love to buy, hate to be sold. I'm sure I'm not the first person to have said that. I don't know where I heard it from, but I use it, right? And I took it on as a philosophy. Yeah. So
yeah, no, I love it. Cool. Well, what's the number one issue or opportunity? And again, issue could be, a problem, or it could be something you need to overcome, or it could be an opportunity. What's the number one thing that is kind of rumbling around in your head as a visionary? And it could be personal or professional.
Well, personal, professional, they kind of always intertwine with me. But I think with being a visionary in general, the hardest thing that I have to tackle is really slowing down enough to have gratitude, and just looking around and say, I've accomplished a lot of great things, and stop measuring my success against other people's success, or these ideals of what my success should be. I think the latest aha that I've really taken on is to stop trying to become the visionary that I'm supposed to be, and becoming the visionary that I am. And that has been so freeing. It's about, letting go of the shame of not being this perfect image of myself, of what others expect me to be, and just untapping that inner genius. And I think that's the greatest opportunity. It's the greatest challenge too, is that untapped genius, because that's that scary zone. That's that's that unknown stuff that says, well, what if I try something and I fail? And it's that fear. We all have it. But I think that's where the greatest reward lies, is saying, gosh, I am this far along in my career. I'm going to make a pivot and go learn something new in unknown territory, and try that on as an add-on to the business. I got a good thing going. I don't need to do these things.
Right.
But this is that drives me. And so it's yeah, but I think that, like I said, I think I can be never satisfied as long as I can stop long enough. And I use the community for this, to really feel that gratitude, be like, okay, yeah, no, this is good. And I think, look, even the Visionary Forum, Visionary Summits have really got me into that headspace of dropping all the mask that I wear to become the visionary who I am, versus the visionary I'm supposed to be, right? So that's that's kind of that. I had to be around other visionaries to really tap into that, because it's they saw me a lot clearer than I saw myself. Isn't that cool?
And that's true for, I think, everyone who's in the forum. It's again, we've been, and this is a stereotype, but a lot of us visionaries haven't really fit in our whole lives. And I couldn't sit in school, and I didn't remember the exact details. Oh, there goes Bob again, coming up with a crazy idea. And then when I met Gino and he helped me with my business, and he's like, "No, you still need to be crazy Bob." I mean, we are the cause of and solution of all of life's problems. And it's not a bad thing to be a visionary. And I think a lot of times that, it's like, okay, we hit the ceiling of complexity in our business. And so that is an opportunity to put structure and process in. But a lot of times the visionary feels kind of put out and separate. And to me, it's an and. I think we need those processes and structures, but we also need the magic and the creativity. And to me, the biggest thing is our spirit and our energy. And if that gets squelched and it's boring, well, then I just lost my edge. And so, again, I think to have a peer group of committed people who are invested in themselves and each other and the world, that we are being a mirror to say, "You're fucking awesome, dude." And a lot of us are like, "Really?" Or "That's a great idea. Now, have you thought about these things?" So it's just that safe space of imagination and connections. And as we talk about, we aren't networking to each other, we're networking for each other. And I may not have the solution for you, but I might know someone who does. So again, to have that peer group, I'm words of affirmation. So for someone to say, "This was awesome, you're awesome," that means a lot to me, as opposed to, "You didn't hit this," or "I didn't measure up to what someone else is doing." So I appreciate having that group and with you in it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's a little easier to find that gratitude. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have found it otherwise, but I just think I can find it a lot quicker with the help of other people that are like me. That again, what do we say? It's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, right? So
Right. Oh, that's a Rufusism.
no, I didn't. That doesn't belong to me. I just yeah, okay. It's a Rufusism now. Sorry, I officially claim it. Put my stake in the ground. Okay. But I forgot where I was going with that. But the forum in general, again, it's that there's been certain conversations, even in summits. It's like, okay, Rufus, stop. You're lying to yourself. You're full of shit, And they have those truth tellers that are there to, and not in a bad way. They're more or less saying, like, are you giving me the canned answer that you give everybody else and that you tell yourself? What do you really want? Or what are you really trying to accomplish, or whatever? And they help you take away those masks to where what's left is just your authentic self. I'm like, oh, wow. It's like going on a hike with an unnecessary backpack of 100 pounds. And every time you're interacting with another person, you get to take another 10 pounds out of that backpack, to where all of a sudden the backpack's just gone. And it's like, this hike is so easy. This journey all of a sudden got simpler. Why was I making it so hard? So it just had other people carrying stuff for me now, or allowing me to put stuff down, saying, "You don't need this anymore."
Oh, I love that. And again, you kind of helped us come up with the term, and it came from iron sharpening iron, and it's visionaries sharpening visionaries. And it's ultimately visionaries unleashing visionaries. So again, we're the mirror. It's out of love and respect. It's experience share. We're not emotionally invested, other than a lot of us have become friends. So I love the visionaries unleashing visionaries. That's awesome. And a lot of people, it's a very misunderstood role or seat or person by many, including ourselves. And so that's what I love. And again, to me, it's not even about helping other visionaries. It's helping people to understand what is vision and what does it look like to realize a vision. Because a lot of people are like, "I have no idea." Well, if you did know, what would it be? And that could be with our employees and our kids and whatnot. And to me, it's the perfect time to be alive to share that, because we're going into a new stage in the universe, which I think is the greatest time ever to be alive. And so as we visionaries are being an example of what it's like to be a visionary, and that doesn't mean we're perfect and everything is a huge success, but we have the courage and the fun to go experience life.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I appreciate that. So if you had one piece of wisdom, like what is a big nugget, a big aha that you could share with visionaries that has been, whether it's a Rufusism or not, but that you could share to say, this is something that has really made a difference in my life? You already mentioned gratitude and slowing down. Is there anything else that you would share with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the wisdom. I guess if I can only look back and say, wish someone would have told me this sooner, was, having permission to be myself. And it's kind of a weird thing to say, or permission to be a visionary, to be the risk taker, to think differently. You had mentioned, fitting in. Yeah, we all have a little bit of that shame of why are we different? Why can't we be like everyone else? But when you got the permission to be you and say, hey, you know what? Not everybody can be like you. You can't be like everybody else, but then again, not everybody can be like you. So why don't you lean into who you are versus trying to be mediocre at what everybody else is? So I think, having that permission to basically, and I say permission, I keep going back to that because I think we all look for certain social proof to try to not take any unnecessary risk, but also having background of well, career-wise, a lot of guidelines and oversight. So it seems you always have some permission to do anything entrepreneurial around here.
Right.
But also, I think from parents that were strict, grandparents that were strict, it's a very structured environment. I tend to find myself seeking permission. So to basically to come into my own, to let down the shame of saying, hey, we all want to fit in, but more importantly, we all want to belong. And I think that there's a difference between fitting in and belonging. I think where I found my tribe, my group, the people that were like me, sharp people, iron sharpening iron, visionaries sharpening visionaries. So I think that was I didn't go out seeking it. I just found it, which was kind of cool. It's great the things that we discover sometimes. So yeah, I think just that wisdom to share is you're not alone. You don't have to figure this out yourself. And there are people that are just like you that can accelerate you, that can amplify you, that can even get you to that next level faster than you can get it yourself. And I think there's the reckoning that you can do this all on your own, but why would you want to?
Right.
I like the fact that visionaries are relatively lazy. That allows us to be very creative, to figure out an easier path. We don't like going a long way around. That's what everybody else does. We're lazy. We want the shortcuts. This is such a smart shortcut because wisdom in general is one of those things, Bob, it says you can either gain that wisdom on your own, and it costs a lot and takes a lot of time. Okay. And the cost could be monetary. It could be time from your family, time from just the trial and error, or you can spend a whole lot less money, be a part of the right type of community, spend a lot less time with the right people, and borrow and gain that wisdom from them because they've already made those mistakes. And I think that's probably the best thing is, the wiser person learns from other people's mistakes versus learning it on their own.
Right. Well, and that reminds me of Dr. Bill Isaacs wrote a book called Dialogue. I had the great fortune to study with him years ago, and his definition of dialogue is the art of learning together. So you have your experiences, your opinions, I have mine. We may not convince each other, but if we have the courage to share and ask real questions and answer honestly, and then get that thought out of our head, and so it's out here, I may not convince you, you may not convince me, but I had a chance to hear myself think and to feel myself feel, then it's like, actually, I don't even believe that. But I had the courage to share it with you. You gave me the safe space without judging. And I think a lot of us visionaries, I mean, at least the ones that we surround ourselves with, we're not judging. We just ask great questions. And it's like, oh, why do you think that? And so I think it's just fascinating. So I love the art of learning together. And again, that's expediting the synchronicity, shortening the learning curve, as you say.
That's really interesting. So he's saying the art of learning together is what?
So Dr. Bill Isaacs, I learned from this actually at Burlington Giants, and when it was at MIT. So this was 20 some years ago. He was one of the presenters, and I forget what his business is, but his book is Dialogue, and it's the art of learning together. And even Cheryl and I, my wife and I, so I just loved what he did. And literally, when he spoke, when he was done, I walked up to Vern Harnish, who was one of the original founders of the Burlington Giants and EO, the entrepreneur organization, which used to be called YEO, and I still like to feel like I'm Y. But I went up to Vern and I'm like, I've got to be a part of this. And so literally there was a spirituality to what he was talking about. And I don't think Dr. Bill would even say it was spirituality. It was kind of more of a fact. Like if I say something, there's usually a meaning behind it, but then there's actually a meaning behind that, which is the original meaning, which that may seem confusing, but he had us do a few exercises and I was so taken by it that I sold my business within a couple months and partnered with Vern to go build this thing, which was more of a business operating system, but that led me to a life operating system. But anyways, Cheryl and I did a weekend long retreat with Dr. Bill, and it was just fascinating to understand how we think and how we can learn from each other if there isn't judgment and there is trust. And so to me, the forum really takes a lot of that on without using his vocabulary necessarily.
No, I wrote that down. It's really good. I like the art of learning together. And I think learning together is something that's special that happens in even in relationships, that the fact that we had that experience and that we both grew as individuals, but together. And we grew through that dialogue with one another and learning something new, and we're both better for it. I think that does create what an amazing bond. Yeah. I think that's even something that, and I guess that's maybe a lot of the what's happening behind the scenes that I really hadn't had a way to put a label on it, is that when we're going to these forums, when we're going to these summits, why are these relationships growing and we're having these connections, is because we are all getting better together. Right. And we're all getting better through each other, which is really powerful, I think. I just never really put words to it, but thank you for that.
No, absolutely. Just give me credit in your book. Yeah. Well, and two things. One, where you said it just doesn't have to be that hard, and that it can be fun. And too often when I'm stuck in my business, it's not fun. And so it's like, wait, what happened to that fun? And it's not just going out and drinking and whatever, but it's enjoying each other's company and learning, and again, testing ourselves. When you said even earlier that, retire, I don't know if I'll ever retire. I will retire from the things that I don't like and I'm not good at, and still do the things that I'm great at and be what I love to do. And that's what I think we found a lot of that. So I'm actually going to reach out to Dr. Bill because he would be a great presenter for the forum or the summit. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him in years, but he's interesting. Well, cool.
No, that's great.
Awesome. My last question for you is, what does the phrase Viva La Visionary mean to you?
For me, it's going to be a little bit different than I think other people, because I was there when it was conceived as an idea, but it came from a place of being pissed off. Honestly, for me,
true.
I remember sitting in one of these conferences and the visionary, as usual, being the butt of the joke, and I'm just like, I guess it's funny at first. It's funny the second time, third time, fourth time. Then it starts to become less funny. Then it just becomes old. Then you start to get a little bit annoyed that these jokes are being made at your expense. And it's like, you stupid sons of bitches all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the visionary. We created this company. It's because we're willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. It's like, show some respect. Okay. And embrace who we are, because it was, and I think the pissed offness came from the idea that it was a kind of transitional stage of my life anyway, because I was just putting down the shame, and I was very angry for carrying this shame for so many years unnecessarily, of there's something wrong with me. And even till that point, I'm like laughing, I was all this self-deprecating, laughing at myself, because I'm so different. I'm chasing squirrels. I'm going down another rabbit hole. Or here he goes with another idea, another shiny object. So I'm like, fuck you, So it's yes, okay. We have problems. We're not perfect. I get it, but the fact that we're willing to do something that other people are not willing to do. So the whole celebrate the visionary was a whole mindset that says, you know what, we're freaking pretty awesome.
Yes,
show some respect.
Right. No,
so when it was like Viva La Visionary, it's like, yeah, I want to go kick your ass, kind of Viva La Visionary. We're awesome, Right. So I don't know. It's just that's where it spawned from, for me anyway. I think less people. Other people were less fired up and more like just a sense of pride.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because I think it tugs at the strings of a lot of us. That it's kind of like, fuck this, because again, you're right. I've been made fun of. thousands of times, and I've kind of accepted that in the past. And again, there is some shame and frustration with that. And so when I left the business coaching community, I had a very prominent coach tell me, it's like, it's time for someone to stand from the rooftop and shout that visionaries matter, and to help them to know that they matter. And again, it's not for you to be like me or me to be like you. It's how do you be yourself, and how can we support and love each other and promote each other? And it's taken off, because again, there's been so much. The pendulum was, all these out of control visionaries, and then, oh, we need to be processed. And now I feel like it's kind of coming back, because it's an and, it's not an or. And so, yeah, I love that. I love having a rally cry, and it's been awesome. So hence the name of our podcast here.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so I think, gosh, I haven't, those emotions all riled up now. I'm like, kind of calm yourself. It's all right. You're in a safe space. You don't have to go kick anybody's ass. Nobody's making fun of you, Roof. But it's little things, like I was even in a conversation with you, and somebody was mentioning were saying, oh, I know Crazy Bob. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, it's like, it's
right.
So I was like, well, you're my friend, and I'm fiercely loyal to all my friends. But it was one of those things, is like, celebrate Bob being crazy. Bob's willing to do shit that most people will never even attempt. He's failed at more things than most people will ever even conceive.
Absolutely.
Because they like playing it safe. Right. Whatever. So
that's awesome. It's so it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be a visionary. And to me, we've hit the ceiling of complexity as a society. And this is our opportunity as visionaries, again, to walk the talk and to have an impact while we're having fun too. Like you said, too many of us have been working too hard, or frustrated because I'm trying to fit in, or to follow the rules of the process. And so I'm grateful to you as a friend and as a fellow forum member, and I appreciate you being on here. Anything else you want to add for the greater good? I appreciate your time.
Not at all. I mean, I guess the only, well, not at all. And then I proceed to talk, true visionary. So I would just say, anybody who would be listening to this or watching this, is that do yourself a service. I mean, getting better, it's hard sometimes, but at least put yourself out there. Good things happen when you get in front of the right people, and at least consider whether or not the forum or the summit has the right people. If not, then move on and go find the right people that serve you. So that's all I would say. Just
good.
Try to put yourself out there.
So thanks for being a part of the tribe, and thanks for being a friend, and thank you for your time. We will see you soon.
All right. Take care, Bob.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Viva La Visionary. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration in our guest stories. If you loved what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and share the podcast with fellow dreamers and doers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless possibilities of visionary thinking. Until then, keep dreaming big and taking action. Your vision matters.